Going back around about 12 years ago, I thought I knew what hypnotherapy and trance work was, but in fairness, I had absolutely no idea what hypnotherapy was or what it could be used for. Back then, my only experience of hypnosis as a discipline was from what I'd seen on TV. I'd watched guys such as Paul McKenna. He had the prime spot on Saturday night television back when I was young, and he would work his magic, his mysticism, and he'd have people behaving in all sorts of crazy ways on the stage, barking like a dog and squawking like a chicken. And to be honest, I was never impressed. I thought, what's the purpose? This is kind of like mind manipulation, isn't it? Plus, I didn't really believe in mysticism or magic. What I never understood back then was how hypnotherapy can be used as a discipline to really serve people in a productive and a really efficient way. It wasn't until around about 2007, when I started studying neurolinguistic programming, that I was introduced to a practitioner called Milton H. Erickson. Now, this gentleman, back in the 1960s, had really taken hypnotherapy from being this mystical art to a real practical form of therapy that really aids and assists people in breaking through patterns of unhelpful thinking, emotional crisis that they're experiencing in life, and into a place of profound inner peace, where they can be reasoned with, where they can gain clarity and insight into what they want less of in their life, what they want more of in their life. And to say no more, I was impressed. So it's important to understand at this stage that right now as you're watching this video, you're already going to have an interpretation of what you think hypnotherapy is. You're going to have an idea of what hypnotherapy isn't. And it's important that we understand that how we define hypnotherapy, hypnosis, trance work as a discipline is going to inform and guide our eventual practice. So what I'm going to suggest at this stage is that it's not magic, it's not mysticism, it is in fact just a discipline that we ourselves must master first and foremost as practitioners, so that eventually we can become effective at guiding and leading other people into this profound place of inner peace. Now, you might be thinking, Kain Ramsay, that sounds absolutely fantastic. How do I get there? Well, if you want to, or if you are ready to start experiencing life in a far more peaceful way, we've got to understand how our mind works. So on this board behind me, I do hope you're going to forgive my imperfect illustrations here, but this is actually meant to be the human brain. Now, what I'm not going to be teaching you here is any biological outworkings of our physical organ, but instead we're going to focus more in on the mind, because the mind is very different from the brain. The brain's the muscle, it's the organ, but the mind is something else, isn't it? It's where the thoughts come in, and the thoughts that come in are going to trigger and spark the emotions that we go on to experience. You see, some people in life get trapped, and I don't know if you can relate. Some people will spend anything up to the entirety of their lifetimes in this place of rationality. And this is where they love information, they love knowledge, they love theories. The more complex, the better, they'd say. But does this really serve us in life? Now, there's nothing wrong with growing in information, there's nothing wrong in growing in knowledge, but there is in fact more to life than this. There's then those people who operate outside of the emotional part of their mind. Now, here's the funny thing. Those people who operate outside the rational part of their mind sometimes have a bit of a tendency of getting a little bit frustrated with those people who operate outside of the emotional part of their mind. And the people who operate inside of the emotional part of their mind see these people who operate outside the rational part of their mind as being rigid and stiff and all this kind of thing. But then the rational people see the emotional people as being out there and airy, fairy, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to suggest right now is that hypnotherapy is a tool that we can use to bypass both. Now, I'm not saying that we completely disengage with the rational part of our mind or the emotional part, because they're both massively helpful when used in balance. But if we fall victim to subscribing to one part of our mind more than the other, then our lives will ultimately end up out of sync and out of balance. So hypnotherapy and trance work is used to kind of create this channel, if you like. through rationale, through emotion, and into this place of reason, of profound inner peace and suggestibility. Now, if you've never experienced this place in life, you might not necessarily be understanding what I'm saying right now. So it's important just to know, right, that if we just simply at this stage were to embrace the question mark, this aspect of life that is unknown to us. The reason why I'm going to encourage you to embrace this unknown at this stage is because we do not know those things in life that we do not know. None of us are perfect. None of us are there yet.